You almost didn't hear that. That's what happens when Laura's not here. All right. All I said was, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and to share them far and wide. Told you guys to watch a speech in Davos. Donald Trump obviously scorched Europe and the entire global order in that speech. But I told you to watch it because not because it was going to be a barn burner, and I knew that, but because it is a pivot point. When the president and the administration come back, they will attempt to use it as a pivot point in order to get back, to steer the ship, to right the ship, and to steer it back toward the domestic and not to be drowned out so much, we'll see, by headlines dealing with foreign policy, which this week when the poll is out, and I can even show it to you guys, an all-time high is saying that Donald Trump is too busy with foreign affairs, not enough with domestic affairs. So this is their attempt to try to do that. And look, he went scorched earth, and it was a good speech, and I'm going to play one reaction to it and then a bunch of other clips, which is why I'm talking very fast in the hope to get this all done in an hour. But the fact of the matter is, we are now 5 years, not consecutive, but 5 years into Donald Trump and the America First promise. And we are firmly now in the period of more action, less talk. And that is just a reality. Now, his core supporters who say he's great, no matter what he does, blah, 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 they're going to love it. And for them, especially, and you know what, it's kind of funny, Mark Mitchell and I were talking earlier today, we can actually map these people out demographically. And there's a big problem for Republicans with this group being the only truly satisfied group. That is, one, they're older. There's no future in them as a coalition within the next 10 to 20 years. And two, most importantly, you can't just win with them. It's not enough. All right. So you have to bring this coalition together. Some of the newer people, ironically, are the ones who say or are telling us we need just more action. We need more action. So it's a great start. If this is going to be a pivot point, it's a great pivot point. But I'm saying, great, you did that. Now do DC. Because that's actually what people are intent. But the president took a couple of, I think, victory laps that were well-deserved. And I'm not going to go jump ahead. We'll wait till we get to those. And then he was funny as hell when it comes to some of the areas of the speech. But let me play Bannon's reaction to it. And I say this because while, of course, Steve is trying to glaze as much as he can and be supportive of the president, he is one of the voices who are steadfast in his, I would say, advice to the president on how to remain on track and make this a success. And that's because some of us understand what is beneath the surface of America First and what made it appealing, right? And that there's some very real grievances built on America First, that America First is built on. And some of us are very concerned what happens to those voices when those concerns are not met. All right. So understand, great speech. If you're a Trump supporter, you loved it, but understand there must be action to follow up this speech. Okay. And we already saw he stepped on himself once already with the immigration thing. But I would urge you all to have some caution on the immigration thing. Eventually, you're all going to figure out why. I keep telling you, I'm not saying that you'll like the final product. I am telling you, however, that sometimes he says things that he doesn't actually mean. So just bear with him on. Look, if he does it and he does it that way, then that's it. That's on him. I'm not saying he won't. Just why I'm telling you, don't think if you did not want to strike on Iran, which I can see so many of you did not, don't think just because we got through the weekend, we're done with this. We're not. The only difference is that at the last minute, it became clear Bibi was willing to accept a bunch of dead Israelis that Donald Trump was not. So if he makes those adjustments and the president feels he's sufficiently beefed up Israel's defenses to be able to take a counterstrike, a real counterstrike, he'll do it. All right. And by the way, that's what the buildup is all about over there, because he actually doesn't think that Bibi can do it. All right. And he thinks we're going to wind up having to shoot the missiles out of the sky ourselves. All right. But back to the speech, one thing at a time. Let's play Bannon, because I think his opinion matters more than most. It's just fact.
You're a globalist. You just think that Trump flew into Davos and went full gangster. If you're a nationalist,
Yeah.
it's the greatest speech since Pericles at Athens. There's no middle ground here.
It was
Now,
good.
President Trump says, yes, we're going to work together, etc. But he gave you a nationalist perspective of working from a nationalist perspective of working within a community of nations.
Yes. Yes. And why it was refreshing to a lot of OG MAGA people is because that's what it's always been about. It's not that, of course, you want to be an isolationist. I mean, that's dumb neocon blabber because they can't defend their positions anymore. It's neoliberal blather because they were no better than neocons and they have more in common with each other than they certainly do with America First, which is much more on realism, which, by the way, is the dominant school of thought in academia, which is hilarious. Usually Washington loves academia, but in the case of foreign policy, it appears they don't. And they adopt every stupid, thesis that can't be defended for an advanced degree. It's just ridiculous. It's preposterous to me. They're all about it in any other issue. But when it comes to foreign policy, nope, they can't do it. It's incredible. It's really incredible. All right. So there's a couple of things that I think, sorry, Steve, I'm going to take you down here, but I'm going to try to go in the order that I think is best because it is a little bit jumbled up from his speech. And if you haven't seen his speech, you should go back. I'm going to give some highlights here, some notable highlights, but I think you should go and watch the entire speech. Right. And by the way, again, there's a reason why you saw parts of CNN and MS Now just talk over the president. They got the pundit on and they'll come in, fade in, and give him his due for some of these clips. The minute he starts saying things that they know is good for him and narrative wise and bad for them, they bring a pundit on to overtalk them. It's unreal. They do it all the time. All right. So first, Trump takes a bit of a victory lap. All right. And he's like, listen, Chicken Little, turns out the sky didn't fall. Our inflation's doing much better than yours. Our economy's growing faster than yours. We have more energy. We're stronger than you. Like he was doing that. And that's total MAGA. It's okay. And this is why 80s babies were the biggest mind changers in the 24 election. It's okay to think you're the better country. Guess what? The rest of the world does. Europe has lost their identity and they've been their wayward souls. And as a result, their countries have taken a huge hit. And if it wasn't for us sitting there, defending them and funding them and basically giving them the money to conduct this experiment in democratic socialism, which would never be able to work without a sugar daddy nation like the United States of America, making sure you're good. And Trump said, look, let's not get this effed up here. Let's not mistake this. It's because of us. And look at you now. Look at you. Here's the first clip.
But it's happened very quickly. This afternoon, I want to discuss how we have achieved this economic miracle, how we intend to raise living standards for our citizens to levels never seen before.
And wait. Let me just say what he said before is Europe's unrecognizable. Look at what happened to you guys. And it happened very quickly. And then he pivots in and he says, look, I just want to tell you how we're about to raise living standards to a level never seen before by any other generation.
And perhaps how you too and the places where you come from can do much better by following what we're doing, because certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody. And say, I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good. But it's not heading in the right direction.
All right, so there it is. And he says it first, and this isn't the beginning of the speech. And he says, I don't want to insult anybody, but believe me, he will go on to insult a whole lot of people, which is, I think he did that on purpose. But I also do think that he's explaining basically that is the MAGA thought. Look, I love Europe and I love our connection to Europe and our shared history together. But the fact of the matter is us over here, we're like the last bastion of those virtues that made you great in the first place. And in fact, 250 years later, our founders, they knew this was coming. They did. And it's really remarkable how these guys who lived as long as they did, as long ago as they did, saw this coming. It's like an aberrant behavior, as John Adams said quite a bit. There's aberrant, effeminate behavior coming out of the motherland and other European old world countries. We don't want any part of that shit. And here we are 250 years later, and they were dead. They were dead right. Anyway, Trump says, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm here to tell you why we're so much better and how you can emulate us and you could do better for your nations too. And because, by the way, I love them and I want them to do better. All right. And then he goes on to this. This is just us. How long have you wanted an American president to say this? Let's get real for a second. How long have you wanted? Fine. After these sons of bitches lecture us over and over and over about how much more virtuous they are and how much better they are than us, how badly did you ever want an American president to just say this?
We saw this in World War II when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the much greater risks than it did ever before because.
And I don't mean to interrupt him because he's got a little bit more to go, but he goes on to say that, look, other people want Greenland. And if you've been watching the show, you know that this is a lot more than the resources on Greenland. All right. I don't know why. And I just don't know why the administration just doesn't want to tell people the whole story. There is going to be a great leap forward. And either the United States is going to lead that great leap forward or somebody else is. Because in order to do what these great powers want to do, they need a foothold in space and need a foothold on the moon. Like, Elon's not crazy when he talks about lunar landing pads and using the moon as a jump off. The United States, we're not perfect, but we absolutely have to lead that. And if you want to not get left behind, there are some areas around the world which are just more ideal to this entire effort. And that is, of course, why he wants Greenland. All right. I can get into the American public can handle the real story, and he should just tell it. All right. He should just tell it. I'm going to say it again. Just tell them the whole damn story. Anyway, we're actually polling this right now. Taking it by military force is not popular. Figuring out a way to purchase Greenland or to acquire it in some kind of a deal is. And I love the president going back and reviewing history because, once upon a time, look at you now. Look at you now. You used to inspire stories like Beowulf. They were Danes. Not anymore. Now you sit around and throw snowballs at each other. And if anybody ever came to take that land, you'd do what? You'd beg us. You would beg us to save you. Screw that, man. The days of us just doing shit for you for nothing are over. We have our own problems. There comes a point, he'll come and get to a point where the translation really just up yours. I'm going to take it. All right. So that was, I think, I don't know, unless you haven't been following Donald Trump for 10 years. There were multiple times in that speech, one in particular, where if you translate Trump to English, it's I'm taking. And no matter what you do eventually, like, I'm going to take it. And there's not really anything you can do to stop me. So let's just stop playing around. All right. And I see people out there like Piers Morgan. Bro, you're British. Shut up, bro. You're British, bro. You have no right to even inject yourself in this conversation. Nobody, and I love your show. It's very entertaining. But you represent what a man used to be and should never, ever go down that path again. Your nation has failed its entire population. You are an example of what not to do in the Anglo-American relationship. No, thank you. And you know what goes to this next clip, where Trump says to these people who talk all this shit, but not when he gets in front of them. And I know this. I mean, Macron, who he made fun of, we'll get to that, is a perfect example. Gavin Newsom, perfect example. These are big, tough guys when they're in front of a microphone 1,000 miles away from Donald Trump. Then they get in the room and they look like they're going to shit their pants. Even with Gavin Newsom, you get on a phone call with him, the guy cries like a little baby. It's a joke. No, thank you. Here we go. Next one.
I don't know. It was because she was so aggressive. And I realized in that conversation that the United States is keeping the whole world afloat. Many places, I could give you 6, 7 places just in the people in this little area. I know every one of them. They're looking down. They don't want to see me. They don't want to stare me in the eyes. But they're taking advantage of, everybody took advantage of the United States. But I've been very fair, and I gave them a tariff, and it was fine. But I realized that without us, it's not Switzerland anymore. Without us, it's not any of the countries that are represented here. And we want to work with the countries. We want to work with them. We're not looking to destroy them.
So we're not looking to destroy them. We want to work with them. He says, but let's cut the shit. We're holding this all together. You talk about the end of NATO. You're still, it's like Treasury Secretary Besson said, you're funding your own demise. Why should we even take you seriously anymore? Putin's just a big bad actor, right? Well, stop buying oil from him then. Have the courage of your own convictions. You're ridiculous. NATO was a balancing coalition against Russia and the former USSR states, the former Soviet bloc, the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact has been dissolved. So we're just here out of our good graces. And to get back to what Piers was saying, that'll be the end of NATO, United States. No. It won't be the end of us, dude. We can survive without NATO. You can't survive without NATO. We don't need NATO anymore. You need us. And it's just, I reject the entire premise that's why so many people do. Reject the entire premise of this globalist worldview. We actually don't need you, bro. We don't. You may have tricked a couple generations of Americans into thinking that we do, but that's the entire point of Trumpism. It's starting to dawn on everybody. Wait a minute. No, we really don't. And that includes our friends to the north. This was hilarious. I love it when Trump dumps these private conversations out in the public for everybody to see. Like I said, guys, I really wish you could witness some of it. They're tough guys. They're super tough guys talking to their own slanted left-wing media outlets that favor them. But when they get on the phone with Trump or when they get in front of him, they just fold like a cheap suit. They're nothing. They're mediocre men and women. But in this case, when he's talking about his men, they're mediocre people who have benefited from a corrupt and rigged system where they are privileged in it, and they are not big enough for the jobs that they have, that people have entrusted to. And if it wasn't for us to sit there and bail them out from everything, they would have all collapsed a long time ago.
It's a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
I mean, what could they do? What could they do? In the old international order, Canada was like basically everybody's bitch. Spain, France, England, especially France and England. Your borders only became your own when we became a superpower. Let's get real. Let's not get this messed up. And I just like, why don't other American presidents talk like this? Because they're part of this system. It works for them. It works for them. They don't care it doesn't work for everybody else. They don't care. The system has been very good to them. So it's a breath of fresh air when there's an American president who's willing to just say this stuff out loud. Speaking of Emmanuel Macron, if you have seen this, sorry. If you haven't, you're going to love it. This is hilarious. His impersonation, his impression of Emmanuel Macron had me laughing hysterically. But it's not even a serious country anymore. France is on the precipice of a collapse. The French people have been completely betrayed by their government and its own policy, and they've lost what makes them Frenchmen. And there's like no semblance of the great French Empire anymore. Nothing. Same goes for the UK. They're just not as far behind as France, whom, by the way, they may have helped us in our revolution. I know I always get that from people. They may have helped us. That was the last oomph they had left because they were too busy, banging their own sisters and brothers and everything else and living in decadence until even their attempt at a revolution went awry and they started executing each other. Our founders had great pride in our revolution versus what the French Revolution looked like. Jefferson was a bit, I don't know, call him a little radical. He thought the French Revolution had a little bit more purity to it. Ours was a revolution of ideas. That's the difference. Theirs was a revolution in the normal sense. Our revolution took care not to upset all of the institutions that they still believed made the nation great, even England. The idea, they never looked down or frowned upon their constitution. It was like the greatest achievement in human government. It just wasn't good enough. It was still too corruptible. They didn't want to upend all of society just to have a revolution. That's what the French did. Which is why John Adams' wife, Abigail, would lament. Hey, while we're at it, while you're at it, actually, is more accurate. Why don't you give women the right to vote? And he's like, whoa. We give you the right to vote. We're going to have Indians asking to vote. We're going to have slaves asking to vote. Yes. Give us some time. We're not miracle workers. The system will strive to be more perfect over time. We don't want to collapse everything in on itself all at once, which was the consensus view. Many of them, Franklin, even Jefferson, oh my God, it's a slave owner. They had much more radical views. They just knew it wouldn't fly all at once, and it was too dangerous. And it would have led to too much instability. And they were right. We did strive to be more perfect over time. We didn't have to chop each other's heads off in a guillotine to try to get there either. But here's Trump reflecting over the tariff situation. And I'm not sure this clip has it, but one victory lap he took was a well-deserved victory lap. Like, look, you guys all said that I would collapse everybody's economy, that it would all lead to skyrocketing, out of control inflation. That didn't happen. In fact, it's coming down in my country. How you doing? And he's talking in particular about his negotiation with Emmanuel Macron with the tariffs he ended up putting on France. And it's just hilarious. It's funny. It is funny.
said, I guarantee you. But I actually sided with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too. And I like him. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because the media made such a big deal over Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron fighting in the first administration. But the truth of the matter is, anybody, including the lying ass media, if they covered him at the time, they know this is true. That when those two men actually got together, it was like a bromance. They got along very well. And you know what was a big part of that? Macron realizing what position he was in. Macron realizing who Donald Trump was versus who he was. How the U.S. was doing versus how France was doing. What were the prospects? Now we all have pretty bleak futures, but what are the prospects for America versus the prospects for France? He was under no delusion about the power imbalance. And the two of them got along very, very well. That's actually very true.
And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill to $20, maybe $30. Think of that. That means it's a doubling of prescription drugs. Might be a tripling, might be a quadrupling. It's not easy. No, Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no. You're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, I will not do it. Because he has to, in all fairness to him, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years.
It took me on average 3 minutes. No. Yeah, you're asking me to double. That's right, because you've been screwing us. I'm sorry. I'm trying to stay composed. You got to understand all these people. Jack, he knows he's been there. And Robert Cayley, they're all sitting there like, yeah, Jack turned the camera around. If you haven't seen it, go to his X feed. It's so good. It's so good. I'm legit about to go to tears over here. It's so good. Because you've been screwing us. And they're all like, well, shit. I'm sorry. All right, let's move on. All right. Here's where he basically calls everybody in Europe stupid. Like, you guys, your problem, one of your big problems is that you're stupid. Right. And he had just basically had said, how I'm doing this. Like, I'm not liberal. I'm not conservative. It's like I'm 95% common sense. You're all stupid. Like, you do stupid things for stupid reasons. And the one example that he brings up is the windmill situation. Okay. Like, you're trying to get all the cost of your this down. You don't want to use that. And guess what? We get costs down because we're not stupid like you. And by the way, your stupidity is actually helping China a lot.
Windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place. And they are losers. One thing is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills. And yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them. But they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear.
All right. We could deal with enough of that. All right. And then, like I said, it starts to get into this pivot thing. And he talks about housing and he talks about predatory lending rates, right? And he brings up what he has done with 2 executive orders. One, I'm going to play one first, then the other. And one was actually kind of controversial, even among like the big con people on the right, conservative Inc. I'm sure both didn't please them very much at all. But the one in specifically really bothered some of these people because, of course, they're all for big banks and big business. And that's why they can't win a national election. If they ever had to choose between too big to fail banks and the working American, they're going to choose the too big to fail people every day of the week, twice on Sunday, and then argue to you that, these aren't really corporations. Corporations are people. There are no such thing as corporations, which I think we all get in theory, but it's completely asinine when you need to be a party that can win a national election. And of course, I'm talking about the credit card debt. And their argument to this was, well, then they're not going to lend to people. No, wrong. They'll still lend to me. Maybe I wouldn't have wanted them to lend to me 15, 20 years ago. Maybe they were taking advantage of me 20 years ago. They're still going to lend to me. Again, we're back to the Chicken Little BS. If you don't let corporations run all over the American worker, somehow the sky is going to fall all the time. It never really does it? In fact, the only time it does is when we have some real scheme of leveling, like the Community Reinvestment Act, which led to the very novel idea of everybody trying to own, everyone in America owning a home, not because the economy is doing so well and our middle class is so big that is a novel goal that we, can get very close to achieving. No, but because we forced them to do it and had that work out. This isn't that. This is saying if someone's got a 630 point credit score, you're not allowed to charge them 25% interest rate, which they're going to run up and never be able to pay back. What happened to predatory lending practices?
The biggest barriers to saving for a down payment has been surging credit card debt.
Yep.
The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury?
Usury. That's the word.
So to help our citizens recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible precedent, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. And this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house.
All right, before, I'm going to have to get the last statement he made. Now, this is why I'm saying, and not to poo-poo on Trump supporters parade here, but this is why I'm saying, very good. Now come home and start breaking shit. Now, do not say. And that includes you having to run against your own party if that's what it takes. Did you go to Washington to be a party guy? Is that what Donald Trump appeared to be running on in either 16 or 24 or 20 for them? I mean, 20 was not a good campaign. That's part of his problem. But the Donald Trump who won, did he win saying he was going to go to Washington and be a party guy and care about how much Republican elitists liked him or the people from the New York Times liked him? This is about your own legacy because it doesn't matter. Oh, I don't want to hurt their chances in the midterms. They're hurting their own chances. Worry about your own legacy. Do you want the voters to protect you when Democrats take back Congress and try to remove you from office? Do you want to be in a position where you look back a year later and say, damn it, I didn't run against them and they're still stabbing me in the back? The position of a sucker? If he wants to get some of this stuff done, he's got to run against his own party. And you tell them, by the way, almost to a certainty, I could say, it wouldn't even come to that. They're going to cave anyway. The vast majority, 98% of them are going to cave anyway. They're not going to want you to run against them. Instead, you're giving your endorsement to like the shittiest people in a primary, from the most liberal pick you could choose to run against Bill Cassidy. So you're going to leave the American voter who supported you and kept you out of prison. You're going to leave them with somebody more liberal than Bill Cassidy just because Bill Cassidy doesn't like you. You're going to leave the voters of South Carolina who backed you 3 times with Lindsey Graham. What's going to happen to your legacy then? You're going to have to start running against these people. That's it. Sometimes at some point, Donald Trump's going to have to make a decision. The American voter or the Washington establishment. Who do you want to be seen as the defender and the champion of when they write your legacy? Because speaking of legacy, so far that and this next thing could be dismantled by the next president in a heartbeat. You need them to codify these things. They don't want to do it. As I tried to warn everybody back in April and in May, they don't want to do things that are big and controversial during election years. They want to fly under the radar, raise money, stay out of town, stay away from their constituents. And they want to raise money so they can just win an election on the airwaves and hide. Congress is not known for their backbone. In order to get them to do it, you're going to have to light a fire in their ass. Like, wait, when I said I was going to go out on the campaign trail, maybe you misunderstood. I meant maybe all against you too, if necessary. I guarantee you 98% of them are going to comply. All right, here's the other thing he brought up, which again, huge part of the pivot to the domestic here. Another very popular idea. This is basically the second time I think the public has ever heard he even did this. These are all things that people need to know about. All right, constantly. There needs to be public service announcements constantly. Repetition. That's the number one rule in messaging. Repetition. People have very short memories, and they need to hear something at least 6 or 7 times before it sinks in.
But homes are built for people, not for corporations, and America will not become a nation of renters. We're not going to do that. That's why I have signed an executive order banning large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. It's just not fair to the public. They're not able to buy a house. And I'm calling on Congress to pass that ban.
Pass it. You got to be more forceful than that. If you don't do this, I might just run against you. Oh, does that mean you'll elect a Democrat? Maybe. I don't know. Be the wrecking ball everyone expected you to be. I mean, there's just got to be this realization of this final understanding that this really is a uniparty system. One has no backbone whatsoever. That's what makes it a uniparty. They're corrupt and they have no backbone. You can't expect them to just do the right thing. Not even if they like you, Mr. President. Not even if they like you. Which they don't. Soon as they leave that office and turn around, shit talking the moment they leave the door. Very few are actually on board with most of the things that you're trying to do. And again, I mean, I don't know if we're going to have the time to do it. I would like to show you some of the polling stuff, but let's see how we get. By the way, there is one thing I really hope we do have time for, which is to like dispel this thing that Marco Rubio's on some kind of rise or something. No, he's not. I don't know. He's not even going to break 7%. We were polling the nominations again. We polled various combinations of tickets to see who was strongest against who. The strongest Democratic ticket, ironically, right now is actually Kamala Harris with Gavin. And that's unfortunate for Democrats because they are both from the same state. You can't do it. There's one ticket, which I really don't want to get into. I just don't even want to say it, which is really strong for Democrats. But unfortunately, there's no way they'll nominate this man for whatever one reason I'm just not going to get into. Even though I see so many people try to flip-flop their position and all of a sudden they don't have a problem with these people. Of course they do. And their base, I just don't see them going for it. All right, last clip to just wind it all together. I think that this was a little bit more, and this is what I told Bannon when I talked to him, like this was like Trump 1.0 again. All of the best of what Donald Trump did in his first administration, even though he didn't have control over the government in the way that he does now, and he still doesn't have full control. But following the Project 2025 guideline at least allowed him to have the blueprint to get a firmer grasp on these agencies and these departments and the bureaucracy in general. But I still feel like, and have felt like, he's missing something from Trump 1.0, which was big. And I think it's a huge part of it's a huge piece of the puzzle on why the economy had a different feel. Now, I don't think it was like naive for people to expect Trump would just get back in office and the Trump 1.0 economy would come roaring back. We did serious long-term damage with COVID and our response to the pandemic. We have a playbook for SARS-related viruses. We decided to tear it up, and we did something truly novel, which is shut down commerce by force, by government force. It's never happened before. It had dire consequences. They're going to reverberate for a very long time. He certainly made gains, but I think it was always naive to think he would just come back in and everything would just go right back to normal. Well, maybe if he was reelected in 2020. But not with a 4-year period of Democrats doing the damage they did, including with the Inflation Reduction Act. That was one of the most damaging economic policies that we have ever seen. To do it at that time and to print that much money for those green new scams and everything else, of course, it had the complete opposite effect of the name of the bill. It should have been called the Inflation Soaring Act, or the Crippling Inflation Act. But in any event, there's still one thing that I think Trump could do better that he hasn't done. And I heard a little bit of it today. Give me a second, I'll tell you.
Explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. We live in an incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in. In our hands are technologies that our ancestors could scarcely have. I mean, they couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today. And so rapidly they're produced. I mean, AI, 2 years ago, nobody ever heard of the term, and now everybody's talking about it. And it can have some very good purpose. It could also have some dangerous purpose, and for that, we have to watch out. But some tremendous things are happening because of it. And we're leading by so much. We're doing so well. But opportunities that are bigger and grander than ever before in human history are right before us. It is the pioneers in this room. Many of you in this room are true pioneers. You're two truly brilliant people. The explosion.
Whoops. It doesn't matter. That's all I wanted to show anyway. Cheerleading. That's it. Trump was a much happier cheerleader for what some of us understand is really the Protestant ethic, right? Whether you're Protestant or not, just hear me out. I don't want Catholics to get in an uproar. We do share some of this with Europe. That is true. But the genius of like Trump 1.0, and Reagan was very good at this, and I got to tell you, to some extent, Bill Clinton, is just is like openly cheerleading and acknowledging and then cheerleading what makes America so prosperous, what makes us so innovative. And that is the remnants of one of the three pillars of American philosophy, the American founding philosophy, which is the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. And he cheerled for that in his first term in a way that I really haven't seen in this term. And he did it happily. Reagan did it too. And it's basically, look, for those of you who don't know what the Protestant ethic is, it's honestly just this worldview. Yes, it was a religious worldview, but it was worldview where, you know, you pursue wealth, not for wealth's end. You pursue it because you don't want to be a burden on society. And because God, you have what's called the calling. God wants you to labor, and he wants you to reap the benefits of that labor. And he doesn't want you to be lazy, right? Benjamin Franklin, idle hands do the whose work? The devil's work, right? All of this is from the Protestant ethic. And we work harder than everybody else. It's just true. We dream bigger, we work harder. That's our history. And it's more true of England than it is any of the other countries. In truth, by the time a very rare instance of sanity appeared on the New York Times, I believe it was 03, why America's always been more prosperous than Europe, or why America has grown more prosperous than Europe, I think it was. I mean, just comparing the average workday of the French versus the, America, the concept of retirement was fabricated during the Progressive Era. We didn't even know what that word meant until they introduced what was called old age insurance and other pension schemes. That became Social Security. Americans didn't think like that. We didn't think it was at any point in our life, should we just settle down and give in? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going full Ben Shapiro over here saying, well, Americans shouldn't retire until they're like not physically able to work and whatever. I'm saying that we had this different sense that it's a good thing and we want money. Money isn't bad. Greed is bad. And that's what made our version of capitalism different than everybody else's. Or, as the German sociologist said, Max Weber, that is no different than the pursuit of wealth that we've seen, that's been around since antiquity. That's not what American capitalism is. And it's okay to want to do that. In the 80s, the Gordon Gekko version of that was like, greed is good. That's not the same thing. And Trump in his first term was amazing at cheerleading for this. Amazing. And yes, it didn't come from our tax code, but there was a general understanding by the Trump kind of president and the Reagan kind of president. Don't overdo it. So you're de-incentivizing, you're removing the incentive for people to want to labor because you're taking too much of the fruit of their labor. Just get out of their way. Be reasonable. Get out of their way. Give them the freedom to do it and let them go to town. And they'll do it on their own. And while even Trump himself, who's somebody who loves to take credit for everything, he didn't really. In the first administration, that is not what he did. There's a general understanding. It's like, I'm great because I understand you're great. And if I just hang back, we can all just bask in our greatness. Unapologetically. This time around, it's been a little different. He's lost a little bit. He's lost a little bit of that. And I think that's evident. Why does it matter? Go look at the damn consumer sentiment surveys. Consumers, the University of Michigan, I think they still do it, survey of consumers. The Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index. When you make Americans feel good about themselves, they project it and they go batshit, man. They are productive. Also, it's just a different economy. I'm not putting all of the, don't misunderstand. I'm not putting all the blame on Trump's attitude. It's not. It's just a different world. But he could stand and cheerlead a little bit more. All right. All right. Let's go and look at some of these locals tips before we run out of money here. I mean, run out of time. Run out of time. All right. The hell's calling me on FaceTime? Man, that's annoying. Dread Robert. Given that Trump, like Biden, has been spouting off, then needs to constantly walk back or have others explain the policy, is there any reason to take any speech seriously? It's a good point. I think that's kind of the point of what I'm trying to say here, actually. He needs to show people again that that's true, that when he says something, he's going to pursue it. And there is this general sense, Robert, you're right. There's this general sense like it's been a lot of talk, but there has not been a lot of action. And until I see that action, I'm kind of sick of the talk. So I think this is very, very important that he does make good. And I'm saying I know what this speech was supposed to like mark and signify because I've spoken with him about it. So this is supposed to mark the pivot. He's got to do it. He's got to do it. Otherwise, what are you going to put together after this? How are you going to reboot after this? It's January 21st. It's January 21st. Is there any reason to take any speech seriously? He has undermined allies politically around the world for months. We can't be negotiated with since deals are broken or complain immediately and we attack negotiators. Yeah, I think that's like, especially in the foreign policy arena on this, I am worried a little bit about like what you're talking about is our credibility in negotiations, right? So like, yeah, you can't go have the president go out and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. And then have somebody undermine that. And I think we've seen that time and time again, whether it was the original plan or not. Those are the signals it sends. And I get what you're saying, but I think more along the first point of what you're saying, Robert, is that like the voter is definitely 5 years into this, to 10 years into this entire America First movement, and 5 years into Trump being the president of those last 10 years, there's definitely a feeling among these, they're not a feeling. They are thoroughly in the camp of little less talk, more action. They are there, man. So there's no speech in the world that's going to turn everything around. It's not going to happen. Now, you can use it as a pivot point to try to redirect the message, sure. But, and I think he did a really good job the other day at the press conference over ICE. It's just that it does seem like, I don't know why the White House doesn't have a war room. I just don't know why they don't have a handful, half a dozen, if that, maybe 3 really smart people who understand what's going on with Americans right now, where the message went awry, and constantly monitoring that message all day long. And for 15 to 30 minutes every day in a morning to confer with the president and make sure that everything is headed in the right direction. They have the brains out there to do it. Now, calling us in one by one it seems like there's like an understanding and then something gets lost. And maybe that's why they don't have one. Maybe they don't want to constantly be reminded that they're off topic, that they're off track. I don't know. Oof, these comments are brutal, guys. Holy shit. Owen, Trump's like a neutered dog who still goes around humping. Holy shit, Owen. He makes a commotion, but we all know that nothing will come of it. If he wants to have balls, arrest people, rack them and punish them. Until then, he's just humping the air. Holy shit. I think it's fair to say that there is a lot of that in the electorate right now. I went to go and lease the car the other day, Owen, and it's funny because I hadn't seen someone for like 6 years, and I saw him again, and he's now like a young man, and he was a young man before, obviously, but now he's a young man in his mid-20s with a little girl. And that's exactly what I heard. Look, I love him. I love JD. I love him. I love the president, but we're way beyond the point of talking now. Like, we had a lot of big hopes. If he doesn't do it, nobody can. So, yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's a meme here from Andrew, and it says, I found a low resolution meme and fixed it. And it's Washington crossing the Delaware. And on it, it says, but sir, a district court judge ruled we couldn't do this, cross the Delaware. You know, like, would Washington have turned around if somebody told Washington to turn around? No. So I think there was one clip I didn't include where Trump says, you know, they call me a dictator. You know, sometimes you need a dictator, and I'm not even a dictator. And I thought to myself, that's actually a really good example of the problem. I'm not saying to be a dictator, but I am saying that people have had it with these institutions. They know that they're like systemically corrupt. Like, there's just, you can't work your will through some of these systems anymore. You just can't. So especially the younger crowd, let's call it the under 45, they just want to break everything. And they don't care what judge says you can't do this. Like, up yours. That's it. That's their, and then, but just so everyone understands, there is a counterweight to that in our electorate right now. And a lot of politicians care about them, including the president, which is this older group. And the president isn't, he's beyond boomer, you know, where they still expect these institutions are going to like come around or something. They're not going to come around. They're gone. Beyond repair. And either someone is a strong man enough to take them on to make sure that problem gets fixed, or those institutions, as corrupt as they are, will win. And when they win, we all lose. Like, that's just it. And there are older people who just don't want to accept that. Mark Mitchell put a Twitter poll up before, by the way, and I think the results of it are really indicative of, they illustrate what we're talking about here. And let me see if I can find it. By the way, I read the message Mark put up, which was really kind of sad. A person even mentioned me in it. But it's a great example of, you know, this, like, this is the end of the line, you know, sentiment, which makes us concerned. Like, what the hell happens when we get to the end of the line? You know, once people realize it's it. Let's see if I can get Mark's poll here up. The Twitter poll. Where is it? Come on. You still have it, Mark? Or did you get rid of it? Oh, no, here it is. Here's a great example. Oh, yeah, this is it. And if you go through the replies, it'll go through, it'll explain what we're talking about even right now. Okay. So here's the Twitter poll. Obviously, it's a Twitter poll. It's not, you know, a scientific poll, but he said, you know, please answer according to your age group. Agree or disagree? America can't truly be fixed without the economy also crashing. Now, maybe that's like more, it's not even radical, but maybe that's a more like hyperbolic scenario. I don't personally think so myself. I think we will need a reckoning, because you just can't get out of something like this without a reckoning. But anyway, look at under 40, agree, under 40, agree, 40 plus. Look at disagree, 40 plus. So when you have the disagree under 40, it's only 12.9%. The disagree is coming from people who are 40 plus who just don't believe that you have to, things have to break in order for them to be fixed. I mean, what we're talking about is something along the lines of like an austerity measure or something. where people in Europe didn't think that that would had to be the case either. They didn't want to acknowledge it until it was too late, right? It's got to be a way I can show the comments on locals. I love the Europe bashing, Rich. Inject it directly into my veins. I'm familiar with a lot of the reasons for taking Greenland. So, yep. Yes, all of the star-based ones, Earth defense and detailed resource extraction proposals. He doesn't give a shit. Trump needs to fix the economy. I don't give a shit, is exactly what he wrote. Trump needs to fix the economy. He wasted so much time in Iran, Israel, Venezuela, and other bullshit. You know, it's interesting you say that. I wonder if I can pop a comment up here, which I was reading to, I think I can. There are some people who are even willing to go after Greenland, you know, even though they didn't have the full story like Andrew does. And he's kind of lost them because the other things they feel like that, like you do, Andrew, like your comment explains, like they have to do the other things first. Yep. They follow the US. Let me just pop this column up first before I go to the other questions. All right. So here is one right here. This is from when we poll, and we'll ask a series of questions, including the White House focus tracker. And then we'll say, listen, you can or you don't have to, but we would love for you to give, take a couple of sentences or a few minutes if they're being voice prompt and tell us why it is that you answered the way you did. You can see I'm trying to screenshot just that one that's transcribed. This is a transcription of that. You'll see on the top, very short and curt answers. It was probably 10 of them that followed the longer one. And you can see what they say. All Trump cares about is foreign affairs, does nothing for the American people. Second one right after that. All he talks about is international affairs, taking Greenland, Venezuela, Gaza, and Iran. All right. These, by the way, especially that third one there, is Trump voter. This is a guy. He's a Trump voter. And I believe he was 40 or 41. He maybe, I don't want to outdate you, bro. He wasn't young, but he was not an old guy, right? He's a working guy. All right. And he, by the way, he was an independent and he's a moderate. But he says right here, although I lean greatly Republican, Trump is out of control, trying to rule the world and fan hose pockets and ego while the USA suffers. Illegal criminals should be deported. Immigrants that are here and paying taxes along with the American citizens shouldn't live in fear. Military shouldn't be in our streets. Barely trained ICE agents should not be terrorizing the general population. And Trump should be focused on the American people who are now struggling to afford electric and food in our broken healthcare system so the middle class can afford to live, not trying to buy Greenland. There's no reason we and our allies can't secure Greenland without stealing it and their resources. So we have a lot of messaging being messed up here, but I'm telling you, a guy like this, if all of those other issues were he felt were being sufficiently addressed, a guy like this he wouldn't have a problem with taking Greenland. His issue is, and by the way, the ICE thing, I tried to warn them last year in November specifically. You have lost control of the ICE plot. Even many of your own voters are going to start to call on you to stop the ICE raids, take off the masks. Like, I understand why, but you didn't make the case as to why they have to wear those masks. So now you lost. So if you want to continue to do the raids, take the masks off, secure the areas so the protesters aren't out there, just like the FBI would if they were going to effect an arrest. They didn't listen. So now even this Trump voter, who is 100% wanting illegals out of the country, he put an exclamation mark after it. Illegal criminals should be deported. Problem is, he doesn't know what constitutes a criminal. That's why the president's press conference the other day was important. And we need to keep that up, though. Tom Homan, instead of talking tough all the time, needs to keep it up. Make the ICE agent. It went viral, the spokesman, if you can't do it, Tom. Explain to people what constitutes a crime, enough so that you will end up on an ICE deportation list. They lost it. So it's going to be very hard to get it back. Either way, I think the last comment we read from you guys really says it all, which is that first, you're going to have to deal with the other stuff before I'm really willing to even talk about anything else. And I think that's a dangerous place to be because you want to get a lot of these other things done. But the voters gave you like 5 months of hardcore deportations, 5-6 months. They were very lenient. They started asking questions. What's going on? What's this? Why is that happening? They got no answer. Oh, by the way, when are you going to address this? I mean, like the one commenter said, he wasted months with Israel and he's going to waste more, it looks like. But the fact is, you got to deal with these other things first now, or at least you have to be, it has to look like that's all you care about. All right. In this speech, I hope this is your moment to do that. They follow us, lead. We view globalism as foreign. It is the U.S. built order. That's so true. That's such a good point. We did this to ourselves. We blew up their connection to Russia. There is a reason Canada has been angling to be under China's wing. Carney was helped into office by Trump. Are we okay with them going their way? Otherwise, it seems like another Ukraine. They then pushed the U.S. pushed the war to happen, complains about paying for it, says it's not us, then admits we are running it. To me, this speech makes me hate Trump unless he follows through. Yeah, this is the danger. If he doesn't follow through, it's just going to be a bigger and bigger and deeper hole. And I got to tell you, I don't know, I did show Viva. I don't think I showed you guys, but the independent number now, guys, is getting so bad that it's like really difficult to dig yourself out with independents, especially since you can see they're actually a few points more Trumpy than they should be. And we detected why that is, why that's been happening. It's because of prior people we would interview. If we would interview them a year ago, they would have said they were Republican. Now they're calling themselves independents. And that's not good. And why? Because when they do that, the America First identification drops. America First currently has like a 6-point edge over traditional Republicans, maybe 8, something like that today. It's really, really bad. It's collapsed. It's totally. And the biggest driver of that is America First prior self-identified Republicans now saying they're independents. And when we ask them about independent identification, they're now back in the column of I share little in common with either. So they went from America First identifying Republicans to I share little in common with either. Now it's a bad trend. It's not good. It's not good. You do not want to see that. Rich, the very few who aren't for the things he is talking about includes Trump and his top picks, Susie, Pam, Besant, Trump glazes Mike Johnson, and the rest. These stories are about him being frustrated in private is empty. He got his big, beautiful bill and loves to compliment the so-called rhinos. He endorses them, attacks anyone questioning it. He and his people love USAID, NED, ACA, and all the rest. I mean, it certainly does appear that several of the people that you mentioned, by the way, are benefiting off of some of these things still staying in place, right? I mean, what are they going to do with the ACA when some of them are lobbyists for some of those companies, some of the biggest healthcare companies in the country? Is he really going to do more with prescription drug costs, even though at the first of the year, people got notices, a lot of people got notices about changes to their copays on prescription drugs? Is he really going to do that when Pam Bondi and Susie were both lobbyists for Pfizer? Or Pam Bondi's case, their lawyer in 21? I mean, it's tough. Right now, Pam Bondi's using the Justice Department as the Pfizer's personal lawyer against Robert's lawsuit with Brooke. So it's like, a lot, some of the stuff he didn't even like fully know. But it's at some point now, though, you know. So it's your problem now. It's your problem. I don't know how to get these Rumble things up. I really don't. I got to learn how to do this. Otherwise, I have to do Rumble Studio, and I'm not trying to do that. All right. This one I can put up. Rich, Virginia is the prelude to a Dem win in 28. Gen Z coalition is completely tuned out. Obama's 08 apology tour will be nothing compared to the backlash that is coming. Take back the narrative. I am starting to get very concerned that you are exactly right. All right. So the Gen Z coalition that we got that thought, you know what, the Trump Vance ticket was the cool ticket. They're tuned out. And when they tune back in, if it's not because of something the right has done to please them, it's going to be to punish us. And somebody actually, and I don't know if he wants me to blow him up, but he knows he got swept out of office with all this shit back in 25. I mean, it's not a partisan, typically a very tough partisan thing, but it was all partisan up and down the ticket. And by the way, that state lost their Republican majority in the legislature. We were just talking about this. Like, this could be way worse than Bush. Mark and I were talking about this part of it too, because Bush was never, like, everyone kind of knew what Bush was. You know, yeah, he ran on not wanting to be the world's policeman, but then after 9/11, he completely changed who he was. But he was able to eke out a re-election in 04. This is different. And by the way, what happened after Bush disappointed the country? That Perot-like coalition fractured off again. Didn't come back until Donald Trump. It fractured off under his dad because his dad betrayed them all. And didn't come back until he ran in 2000, pretending he was something totally different. But still, he was a Bush, and people were like, he's a Bush. Here comes Donald Trump, who brings them back into the fold. But Donald Trump isn't running as one of them. He's running against them. In fact, he thinks they're stupid. He takes on the Bush dynasty and destroys it. He takes on the Clinton dynasty. He destroys it. So people did think he was going to be different. So a disappointment by him, I think, could have a worse impact. I do. I really do. And for those who thought that this thing couldn't go sideways really, really bad, have you been paying attention? Did you see the polling in Alaska? Have you seen how John Husted is barely leading? It's like a rounded up 1-point lead in Ohio. Iowa's not looking too good either. I can't get into all of the details, but I'm looking at 2 polls from 2 incumbent senators. If they get nominated, which I think they are, actually, I'm sorry, one is an incumbent, the other one is the chosen incumbent's replacement. Huge percentages are telling us they're not even going to vote. Others are saying, I may vote for a third party. Others are saying, I may vote for the Democrat. These are Trump voters we're specifically interviewing. That's how mad they are. And then definitely in one of those states, if Democrats had 2 things going for them, proportionately higher turnout rates than Republicans, even though it is a redder state, plus a massive swing to them with independents, those 2 things coupled with that much base fracture could throw a Senate seat, one, if not both, of the Senate seats I'm talking about, and it would be a shocker. There's always a sleeper. There's always a shock. See if I can get a little bit more permission to talk about that in the future, because I frankly think everybody needs to be shouting this from the rooftops. Like, you nominate this person, you could lose this seat. You could lose the seat. Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of like traps out there. I love Ken Paxton, even though he lied to my face. I love Ken Paxton. I just can see a scenario in which Paxton loses. But on the flip side of that, I can see a scenario in which John Cornyn loses, because nobody wants to vote for these schlubs anymore. Nobody. It's tough. It's a tough call. All right. With that in mind, let me just give you guys a quick reminder. Don't forget about the public polling project. If you can, contribute what you can. But what I really want you to do is, if you have contributed to the public polling project, if you do contribute to the public polling project, go to, and let me show you guys. Oh man, I have my screen open right now. My screen is direction of country. Wait until I update it from this poll. It's going to be the lowest level it's been since Donald Trump took office. Right direction. All right, but let me show you what I'm talking about here first. It technically will be, because this poll right here, when it was at 31, came as Donald Trump took the keys from Joe Biden. I think it was like 3 days after Donald Trump was in office. So it won't be that low, but it is going to be lower than this. Not good. All right. This is what I want you guys to do, though. Makes my life so much easier because I think a lot of people aren't checking whether or not they check the reoccurring contribution box. So we've been giving back a lot of contributions because people are like, "Oh, my car got charged again." I'm like, "Right, because you clicked that box." I have looked at it a million times. Like, it's not automatically checked unless you checked it at one point. So this you can go to, not this link. Click on that little arrow. Donor dashboard, donor history will come down. Go look at your donor history. Make sure that's not happening. Go to your donor dashboard. If you do not want to make reoccurring, listen, I appreciate them, but we move on, right? What happens if you make a reoccurring one when that campaign's over in 4 months? Because that's how we break them up, 3 months, quarterly campaigns. So there'll be a goal for that quarter, and then, we'll do as many polls as we can within that quarter. That's okay if it reoccurs then, because then it's easily transferable over to the other one. But once we leave that quarterly campaign, you're still making reoccurring donations to it, and you'll potentially overfund something. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but it is possible. Right now, what I really want to make sure is that if you do want to make a reoccurring donation, go to your donor dashboard and make sure that you're doing it in the most recent campaign, which is one I just put up. Okay, it's the national polls. It's like three donations. I just put it up. National poll for Q1 2026. Well, I got to refresh the cache. That's the one it should be on. Or you can do the specific polls that are in that campaign. That's fine. Once you click on it, you'll see. But don't make sure you're not stuck making reoccurring donations to that thing. Okay, I don't want that to happen, you guys. All right. And I mean, I don't want you to give if you're not trying to give. I don't want you to give on accident. All right. It's just very difficult for us to do refunds, and I've been doing them, and they take time, and it's just tough. So I think we generally have a handle on the situation. I just got to keep repeating myself for a while because not everybody watches every single show. So bear with me. All right. All right. Other than that, again, don't forget, if you like the shows, to like them and share them far and wide. My Gram's got like 300 followers on it. If you're on Instagram, go to at peoples_pundit on Instagram and follow along over there, because we haven't been doing it yet, but we're going to start doing a lot of short clips. All right. We have a plan for this here. So Instagram is a big deal, especially with people who are my age and below. Instagram's a big deal. X has got its place. It's uniquely political, but 37% of registered voters use X. About 50-something% of voters under 45 do. Well, guess what? 80 plus use Instagram. So I got to do it. All right. With that in mind, I guess I'm out. I'm going to kick rocks. I may have to go and get my little one. I want to make sure I'm out there to do it. All right. I will see you guys on Friday. Locals, I'll see you on a Road Rage. Of course, I'm glad everybody likes the new Road Rage, and been really busy with some of these other polls, but we'll get you fresh data ASAP. Oh, let me just show you this. I don't want to. Yeah, I almost forgot. We will start putting out like the approval polls and stuff like that are going to be registered voter, and any ballot stuff will be likely voter, because people are just getting too damn confused. So let me show you guys the most, and the last one was Vance was like basically, yep, there he is. Okay. Here is the general, the nomination for the Republican nomination. We did do the same for Democrats. Here you can see Vance at 46 of the more expanded universe. You can see Rubio here is at 7. That's where Rubio was before. Ted Cruz still is not able to break 4 points. Robert Kennedy actually rose quite a bit. He almost overtook Ron DeSantis. He is in second place. If you do certain only, we will start to tighten our voter screen like we did with the first nomination poll. You can see Vance just about to crack 50. So I don't know what the hell everyone's talking about. Vance went up a little bit in our polling. Rubio, if we tighten the voter screen, he went up about 0.6 of a percentage point. That's about it. Ted Cruz, 3.6. Nikki Haley, 5.4. Robert Kennedy, 6.6. If there was a bigger electorate, Robert Kennedy would be doing better. He leapfrogs with Ron DeSantis at 9. In our last poll, Rubio was at 7. Vance was at 45. DeSantis was at 8. Haley was at 5. Kennedy was at 6. So, I mean, like I said, there's not much movement here. Kennedy ticked up a point. Cruz will fall a point. He was at 5 before. What's Tulsi at? 2. She was at 3. Youngkin was 2. Where's Youngkin at now? 2. I mean, it's not much movement. A little bit more support for Vance and a little bit more support for Vance, a little bit more support for Kennedy. That's it. Oh my God, I didn't show any of that to you. Jesus. I'm over here talking and I'm thinking you can see it. Well, there it is. If we go through various, self-reported likelihood to vote, stuff like that. Obviously, Vance still has a very big lead. DeSantis flat at 9. He didn't change any. Kennedy ticked up a little bit. If you give Kennedy a little bit bigger of an electorate, boop, see, he goes up more. Vance comes down 1.5 points. All right, so there you have Vance still with an overwhelming lead. Marco Rubio didn't go anywhere. I don't know what anyone's talking about. Rubio leapfrogs and doubles, and no, he didn't. He's at 6%, 7%, where he was before. 7%. It's exactly where he was before. So, sorry, another big con. All right, it's 3:23. I got a boogie. Nothing but love for you guys. I will see you soon. Don't forget, if you like the videos, like them and share them far and wide. I will see you on the next Inside the Numbers. Or Road Rage if you join locals.